Okay, good evening, everybody, once again. Welcome to our 7th week of our Ag-cademy. A few housekeeping rules to keep in mind. Please keep your mics muted. Raise your hands if you have any questions. If you prefer, feel free to type your question in the chat. Mr. Jason Badal, welcome.
You have it correct.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's just start now, or there's more of the
You
housekeeping?
could go ahead. It's 6:06 now.
Okay, thank you for the introduction again. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys had a wonderful day. It was truly a pleasure having this class with you the last time. There was a lot of insights that came in. I think I spoke to the Agri-Academy management team because I wanted to change the presentation to suit some of the suggestions that came in, some of the questions that came in, because I believe there was a need for a broader understanding of some of the issues around costing and pricing, and generally how to manage finances in a small agricultural business or small agro-processing plant. To begin, I think the last time we kind of jumped in a little bit too quickly. I needed to get a better idea of some of the businesses that we have there. So I can remember some of the names. For example, I remember Ronita with Seymour in St. Vincent, and a few others. But just quickly, if somebody could give me an idea of some of the agro-processing products that are produced here and some of the people that are doing agriculture and what products. So just randomly about 5 or 6 of you. Just give me an idea of people in agro-processing. What country are you from and what product do you make? Don't be shy. Moderator, can you call some names for me, please?
Okay, no problem.
Hello.
Somebody's on?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
my name is Mochi Sedam. I live in St. Kitts, and I make wine, hair and skincare products, jams and jellies, cheeses, hot sauce, a wide range of products.
Wonderful. That's a lot of products.
For juice, such as mangoes, grapes, pineapple, Nancy Port. We also have our signature wine, which is a pumpkin wine.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Dudri, would you like to go next? Okay. Janice Saltibus, are you there?
I am there, Sandy, but since I am like a virgin in the business, I am still taking in processing.
That's fine.
Well,
just tell me what you make.
Okay, well, presently I make local juices, banana bread, coconut cake.
Okay. Thank you. 2 more.
Cassandra? Cassandra, are you there?
Good night.
Good evening.
You hearing me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'm Cassandra Farrell. I make local wines. My brand name is Miss Cassandra's. So I make wines from a variety of local fruits. I also make a wine from aloe vera and one from sea moss. I also do pepper sauce, green seasoning, Ruku extract, the extract from the noni fruit, and I'm also into farming. but mainly lettuce and herbs.
Cassandra, did I meet you in St. Vincent?
Yes, yes, you did.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, you did. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The reason I asked all these questions is because I had a very long thought process after the class, and I realized there were quite a bit of gaps in you guys understanding some of the basic concepts of costing and pricing that tie into business development. So, like as I was mentioning, a bit of changes were made to the presentation. So today we're going to look at it from more financial management for small farms and agro processors, so you guys could understand some of the basic things that you need to manage your farms properly. Because generally in this industry, in my experience, I have noticed that there are many, many people in this sector who operate and they have no clue whether they're making a profit or not. And once they're able to cover some of the basic expenses, because they tie their living expenses to their business, it looks like it's manageable, but they're not able to make efficient decisions, right? So today we're going to do a broad overview of financial management. I am going to delve into some areas that are not specifically costing and pricing, but I believe based on the last class, it will be very helpful to you and overall to give you a better understanding on how to treat your business, your hobby, your dream, your passion as something profitable. So in most cases, this is one of the major issues for small businesses, financial management. It causes some of the most problems for small scale processors like you who do wines. I know there are so many different processes that go into making wine, so many different inputs, so much time that you have to wait for things to happen, and none of these are measured. Similar to making jams, jellies, all of these different processes that we don't measure. So we end up, one, you might be overspending. Sometimes we're spending on sugar. The sugar is used in the home. It's also used in the business, and we do not account for it properly. We treat our profits as personal income. That is a major, major part of why some businesses fail. We do not separate business profit from income that we use in our daily expenses. And we end up sometimes believing that we're comfortable while the business as an entity is suffering. So sometimes the individual might be profitable, the individual might be feeling, oh yes, I made some good money today, but the business has not made because you have not transferred what is due to the business to the business. Poor record keeping. One of the biggest ills that we've had in the region, OECS countries, even larger CARICOM, is the record keeping. And you'd find that being said a lot by funding agencies, and I'm going to speak a bit about this later, where a lot of us are not able to get access to finances because we do not keep proper records. So you'd see, for example, for a number of years, the Caribbean Export Development Agency used to have those grant funding programs that used to offer you fantastic grants for your ideas, for your businesses to develop. However, they would come and ask you for 2 years of audited financial statements. For some small businesses, it's like, what are audited financial statements? How do I get this? And sometimes we believe that it's rocket science, when if we were doing this thing, as I mentioned, with the old man in the store, with his notebook, if we were doing these things properly, we could easily transition into getting those 2 years of financial statements. Another major mistake small businesses do is that we have too many debts, or we have too many people owing us. Now, that is something nowadays you see a lot of small stores say no credit. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of businesses have closed down because they offered too much credit. And then sometimes you now go ahead and you're so excited that you want to start. You want to buy a kettle, you want to buy a stove, you want to buy a fridge, you want to buy a blast freezer, you want to buy a dehydrator, that you go and take a loan, or you go to courts and you take things on hire purchase. And then when it comes down now to settling some of those debt, it's a problem because we did not allocate those debts to the actual income that was coming in. So sometimes we have more debt than income, and these things cause businesses to go out as well. So these factors are very, very important for small businesses. We need to keep these things in check. But all the things in the circular flow that you see there, the only way that we can manage this properly is by keeping proper financial statements. And simply put, we need to do proper record keeping. So as you could see here, small scale processes, businesses need to keep all the financial information. Some of us do that. I'm not too sure. Let me see if I could get one example. How many people in here, or just one person in here, I'm not going to make you feel bad. All your financial information is in your head. Nothing on paper. I'm guessing everybody has the books. Is that a yes?
Mine is on my head.
Yours is in your head.
Yes, oh yes.
Okay, so let me ask you, do you support your family with your business?
Some,
Okay, so what happens if something happened to you?
well, they themselves will take over because I teach it them and I make
But the information is in your head.
because what I did, I'll write all what I do. Let's say, for an example, if I had to do like very simple, a bake, I will teach them the ingredient of the bake, how to weigh the dough. They cannot do everything. One is big, one is small. So I make them weigh it, and then I will tell them, okay, that's the price for it. The sugar I put.
No, but what we're speaking about here is financial records. So what I'm trying to let you know, or what a mistake that I do not want people to make. I see some people put in their head or on the books, but we've had several situations, even very successful businesses, where the owner is so suspicious, even of his own children. They're so suspicious of their employees that they keep everything in their head. And then when something happens, that information is not there, and then proper decisions cannot be made afterwards. So for example, you could have somebody that owes you $5,000 that you alone know. And then when something happened to you, unfortunately, you got a stroke. Unfortunately, something happens where you are not able to relay that information to your team, to your staff, to the bank. Then that person out there is caught free. And it's happened many times where even when there is a death in the business, people are walking away with the money owed to the business because the individual is the only person that knows about these transactions. And this is what record keeping is there to avoid. And the biggest one I've seen, that one I know for sure, I hope the people in this class are not guilty of this. But a lot of us believe that we should not keep records because we can avoid paying taxes. So because I don't write it down, Inland Revenue cannot tax me. And that is a fundamental flaw that we do because legally, as a business, you are supposed to pay taxes, whether you're in a tax bracket. You have to keep the information properly so that you are taxed properly. And so in some cases, the government might be the ones owing you. So this is important, and we need to stop making that mistake. I have seen it when a lot of businesses start small with that same mentality and they grow. For example, some businesses start off, it's small, so they do their business transactions on their personal bank accounts. And they believe, oh, it's on my personal account, I cannot be charged, they cannot come and see what I have. And then when you grow, as you grow, certain transactions are not individual transactions. So the bank now can stop what you're doing, stop your transactions, because you are doing transactions that are not personal, they're business related. And then sometimes you file your taxes or you're investigated and these informations come in, and then you end up having to go and pay taxes for years and years in the past. We need to keep records of our income and our expenditure. If you fall ill, if you have to transfer the business, if you have to sell the business, if you want to do valuations, all of this information is important. This is why we need our records. So, as I mentioned, as I started the group asking about the different businesses, both farmers and processing enterprises at all levels, whether it be you do a basic raw material and you don't transfer it, you do watermelon, you sell watermelon, you have at all scales of operation, you need to keep your financial records. Everything that is done that involves finances, you have to have a record of it. For those for these, they know how much income from sales has been received, what has been spent, and what purpose. You need to have that information because this information is what will help you to make your decisions. So depending on the size, the type, you have to keep records of production. I have seen people, for example, they go into production, they invested in seeds or they invested in seed and plants, and they do not keep records of what that was able to produce. So for example, you have an acre of land, you invested in 20,000 plants of a certain crop. It's important to note that your work as you proceed along, because we're talking about months and months before you get to your crop. You have to track your production to see if 20,000 plants gave me $50,000 in yield and I have extra space, I can now invest and I can do this and I do that. This is how you make those decisions. Some of us buy equipment and we don't record the information. We don't record the maintenance of the equipment. We don't record the maintenance of the vehicles that we use in our business. All of these records are important. And these are, as you could see here, these are the benefits of record keeping. So you are able to analyze business finances to reduce costs. And this is one of the things most small businesses do not do. Sit down at the end of the month. You have your records, and we're going to come to the records in a little bit, but you have your records in front of you. Whether you use Peachtree, whether you use Excel, whether you use a notebook, sit down at the end of the month. I spent X, I sold Y. What can I do to reduce X? What can I do to increase Y? Am I using too much labor? Am I using too much fertilizer? Am I using too much electricity? Where is the cost savings going to come? How can I get to my optimal form of production so that I am able to cover my costs, the costs that we did in the previous class, and we are able to make a profit? This is what those records do. I spent $800 on rent. I spent money for cutting the grass. I was able to pay $3,000 in labor. I was able to harvest $10,000 worth of watermelon. I have to look at these things individually, see how each factor contributed to my end, which is my net profit. After I've paid all my loans, all my this, how, and then you look at each one to determine what can you do to improve it. A lot of us don't do this. We get the money, we go to Marcy, we go to the stores, we do this, we do that. We do not analyze how can I improve this. The same way you can improve your packaging, the same way you can improve the size of the watermelon, you can improve your business by monitoring your records, right? And to do this, you know how much profit and loss is made, whether a product range should be expanded or reduced. So you could, especially for the ladies, I heard some ladies inside there that do multiple products. Now, it's fantastic that you can do CMOS wine, pumpkin, pepper sauce, and there was another one you said. It's fantastic to have all of these, but could it be that your wine is carrying your pepper sauce? That could it be that the effort that you put into the pepper sauce should not be when it should really be in the wine, because the wine is your main revenue earner? You could see this by keeping your records properly, because you are able to track how much time you put into pepper sauce creation. You could track how much money you spent to buy the peppers. You could track how much money you spent to buy the bottles. You could then see how much it was sold for. Then compare it to the same parameters for the wine. And then you would say, you know what? I am really stressing myself out by doing all these things when I could make it triple the profit if I made more wine. And you could only know these things when you have those records and you're able to do it. And as I mentioned, taxes are, according to the law, you must file the taxes as a business. Keeping those records help you to conform to those taxes. Knowing which customers owe you money and how much. The lady said she remembered everything, and I know some people never forget who owe them, but it can happen. As you grow, if you do not keep track of who owe you and how much, you can easily slip through your books. And that is a very, very big problem because you are losing money. Know who are the creditors of the business. Same process. Who do you owe? When do you have to pay them? You need to see how can you do that so that you are able to manage your debt properly. And detecting fraud or theft. Now, I'm not saying for some of you who probably have people working for you or you are involved in areas where that is easy to be done. I am not telling you to look at your employees or not trust your employees, but trusting people is not business. Business is right down to the nitty-gritty of the finances. And the only way you can detect these things is by proper record keeping. Somebody can be with you as your right-hand man and be stealing your money for years. And if you do not track your money properly, you will never know about it. So let's look at a practical example now. I'm pretty sure most of you already do this. I'm hoping that most of you have an idea of what an invoice book is. But this is a practical example of what happens when you do a transaction. So you have to be able to put a number. And that's important because you want to be able to have an area where a figure that can track when a transaction takes place in numerical order. So you are able to know instantly by the invoice number, this happened then. And then you have your dates. 2, the person's address. Some of this might not be necessary, some of it might be too detailed, but this is basically what you need to track. When somebody buys your product, whether it be in cash or in credit, or they don't pay immediately, you should give an invoice that has this information. The number, customer's name, the products that was bought, and how much is owed. This is very, very important because in some cases, where if this gets to a situation where you are now in the court of law and this person is claiming that they never got this or they never bought this from you, these are the documentation because this is basically almost like a contract between you, the producer, the seller, and the person who is purchasing from you. And these are the basic information that you need to track from it. Everybody here uses an invoice book. Who doesn't use an invoice book? Okay, I'm getting no comments, no.
I do. I use invoice. I do.
Okay. And
I invoice my clients.
Your invoice is numbered properly?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
The book comes with all my numbers.
Okay, good. Similarly, when the transaction has taken place, it's important to have some kind of record to show that the customer has picked up this transaction. So this is normally done with a receipt. Some people call it a delivery note, but this is important because it can be used to prove that the items have been delivered and in good condition. So you have situations where you have customers who can be dishonest and say that, you know, I never got this. This is what you use to prove that it is. And then if you, the customer is now paying a bill, especially if something is sold in credit, you use the receipt to show that you now received that transaction. So this information goes into your books as something that came into the business as well. So this practical introduction, I think, was necessary because we need to show that we're keeping these financial statements. In most small and micro enterprises, you use a single entry record system, which is what we just saw. So you're talking about sales and expenditure. If these basics are done, whether it be for a small startup farm, right up to agro-processing of multiple products, you would be able to get information to make real decisions. So you're talking about sales, this is your income, and your expenditure in terms of what you sell, what you spend, sorry. And you are able to track the date, the nature, the amount of money involved. You are able to now put these things in different columns and see your business in front of you. And that is very, very important. This is one of the most important things for small businesses going forward. So these are more of the financial statements that we're going to be talking about: bank statements, balance sheets, cash flows, profit and loss accounts, and finally, we're going to be doing a little bit of break even. So let's start. I had a small slide. Okay, good. One of the major reasons I mentioned when I introduced why these statements are important is that you have a lot of situations where there is grant funding available. I'm pretty sure Helen's Daughters has provided some assistance with small businesses, small farms to gain revenue from grant proposals. In St. Lucia, I know the Ministry of Commerce recently had the MSME loan grant facility. Even with the Youth Economy Agency, you have small grants for young people, I believe up to $5,000 to get equipment, to get input, raw materials into the business. However, one of the major reasons why people do not qualify for grants is that they're on loans, is that they do not keep financial statements. Now, you'd say, but I'm a small business, I don't see why that should be an issue. The issue is you want to prove to the person providing you with the grant, the person providing you with the loan, that you are using this money in a proper way. And the only way you can show that you're using the money properly is if you're keeping records. Not only in terms of using it properly, in some cases for loans, they want to see the ability for you to pay back. And you cannot come and say, but sir, I foresee I will make profits by the end of the year. No, your records have to show an upward trajectory in terms of your sales. And that's the only way we are able to get this. So sometimes we go for a loan and it's denied because we do not have proper financial records to prove to the lending agency that we are able to pay this thing back. And similarly, when it's a grant, the grant is money that you don't have to pay back. But at the same time, you want to show this is money that is usually coming from an agency that is looking for development. They do not want to have money that goes into a business and it does not bring forth some kind of economic benefit to the individual and largely to the community. So it's important that you guys understand record keeping assist with this, with getting this grant and getting these loans. So I will pause there. Any questions so far? Are there any people in here who have received a grant or currently using a loan to finance their business?
We have received a grant.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit about it, Ronita? What is the process to get that grant?
So normally they have the grant calls out and you have to fill out the purpose of the, you have to have a comprehensive plan. Risk analysis, the problem you're going to address with the grant. It is a lot. It's a lot of information, but each of the grants
about the financial part of it here. What did you need to provide so that you got that grant?
we needed to have a business account.
Mhm.
We didn't really have to do any financials per se because it was more geared toward they normally give you the guidelines and the criteria that you fit within. So we had to tick all the boxes and make sure that we meet the criteria, and we applied and we were successful.
Anybody else? Anybody here is the business is being financed through a loan? I would love to hear the perspective of somebody dealing with the bank. Oh, so we have no loans in it.
Hi, good night.
Yes, good night.
In 2015, under the Bank of Citizenship, they were offering $15,000 loan. But in order to get that loan, you had to do a training for a week. And then you apply for the loan and you are approved. But some of the challenge that I had, because you had to pay the bank $381 per month for 4 years. The first 2 years of my business, where I used that money to buy bottles, register the business and so forth, get labels and those things. The first 2 years in payment was good. But in coming to the third year, I went into some challenges where you wasn't getting the raw material to do your seasoning and the pepper sauces. So I had to go back to the bank and restructure the loan to end up and paying $250 a month instead of the $381.
Mhm.
That was my little experience with the bank.
And is that reflected in your financial records?
Well, I start saving information on a computer, but I wasn't saving it in the notebook, and that computer mashed up.
Oh.
Those information went downhill for me. So I had to restart in doing within the notebook and
Mhm.
using it. So whenever I sell anything, if I buy whatever, I write to the back of the bill book
Mhm.
what I sell, how much I paid, and what.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that example. The reason why I like the examples or the communication that comes in from you is because almost every time somebody makes a contribution, you learn something new. Because the young lady who just spoke just now made a very interesting, a very interesting point, because even while she was keeping records, there are threats to those records, which means that you should never be keeping records in singular areas. So earlier we spoke about people who keep their records in their head and how something could happen to you and that information is lost. Even when you keep it in a notebook now, what happens if there's a fire? What happens if the notebook falls in the water? So it's important now to have this backed up. So optimally, what you want to do is to, if you are keeping the records on computer, is at the end of the month, you want to print your financial statements and have it saved in your company's record. So you could have a file, you could have the file labeled by the month, and at the end of the month, you are able to get your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, your profit and loss, and you save it. This will help you in case something like what the young lady who just spoke, if something like this happens to you. It's also important in your own record keeping to have those kind of backups. So it's good to get those experiences so that you guys could learn how you are able to keep those records and not only keep them in one area, but to ensure you have a backup. I got in some comments here from the group. overseas information. Linda, that's for another discussion. We will probably speak afterwards. I could tell you a bit more about this. And as Juanita mentioned, proof of income, deposit, bank statements, sometimes as far back as 3 years. Every single bank would have different lending requirements. But having your records, even right now, as you are a fledgling business, as you are growing, these records help you if you do get to the point where, and don't believe that you won't get. You could have a small business doing pepper sauce now. And I think it was Linda who mentioned about overseas markets. You could have a small business doing pepper sauce right now. And tomorrow, somebody can say, this formula is amazing. I would like to give you a contract to produce 1 million bottles a month. What do? You're going to let that go away? This is an opportunity for you to transform your small business into something massive. The only way the bank will listen to you and say, yes, look, I have a contract that shows that I can upscale to this with sales. But what have you done so far to prove to me that I should give you my money to upscale? And this is why these records are important. So let's look at the first one, the balance sheet. Simply put, it shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. So I'm pretty sure everybody here has an idea of what this is. We're going to go through it briefly, but we're talking about simple things: your assets, land, building, machinery, vehicles, furniture, fixtures. And in some cases, as we go up the chain right now, in some of the islands, assets also include patents and trademarks. So, for example, let me see. Ronita, what is the name of your CMOS business?
Ocean Remedies, but we got
Ocean
the grant
Remedies.
for the CMOS Association of SVG.
There you go. So that business can now, because it's getting successful and the name is so well known, the name now could hold equity and it becomes an asset. So for example, let me look for one that's very, very big. Coca-Cola, as an example, could not have any factory. They could not have any product, but the name Coca-Cola could be sold for billions of dollars because it has already gotten that level of equity, and the trademark is important. And for some of you, sometimes you have a formula. The lady I met from St. Vincent, the formula for your pepper sauce can be something that somebody, they would just come to you and say, you know what, sell me this formula. And then you have to put a value to it. That is also an asset. So we have to keep these things in mind when we're doing our books as well, that these things go in there and they give us even larger values to our business. And then you have your liabilities, the simple ones: salaries, taxes, loans, monies you owe to your suppliers. These are the stuff that is tracked in our balance sheet. So this is a small example of what it looks like. On one side, you have all your assets. On the other side, you have all your liabilities. And then at the end, you total it. This gives you an idea of what your business looks like financially right in front of you. This is how much cash I have. This is how much people who owe me. This is how much stock I have. This is the value of my machinery. This is how much people I owe. This is how much I owe the bank. This is how much I owe my shareholders. This is how much I owe the government. Simply put in front of you, you have an idea of what the value of your business is. If your liabilities are greater than your assets, we have a little problem. If your assets are larger than your liabilities, we're cooking with gas. The next statement I want to look at briefly is your cash flow statement. And this one is one small businesses use a lot. And if you know how to use this properly, you could make some very important financial decisions. So a cash flow, financial document that shows how much money is coming into your business, how much money is going out when these movements occur. That's very, very important. For those of us who don't like to track the money, we sell $1,000 worth of watermelon. As soon as we finish, we go to Marcy and we buy groceries. Doesn't work like that. Cannot work like that for the business to survive. You have to track how your cash comes in and how it goes out. So this example here, you could see the BF means brought forward for whatever month. For example, if you start in November, you take in the money that you finished the month of October with, and you bring it forward. You add your sales, add your equity. This gives you your total income. Whatever comes in, that is your cash inflow. Now, a lot of times you're going to see a lot of the bottom one here, which is your outflows. What goes out? How much are you reinvesting into the business? How much are you spending on the business, on your bills? How much are you paying rent? How much are you paying labor? How much raw materials are you going to buy to continue production? This is important because it shows now. And if you look at that first one, so month one, we'll call it November. Come in, month one. Month one shows that at the end of the month, you are in deficit. How many of us currently operate with a cash flow statement? Let me just get that quickly. You could type it in the chat, or you could just say aye. Oh wow, there's nobody using a cash flow statement. That is very scary. So am I correct in saying that none of our participants, 119 of us, do not use a cash flow?
We have Anne-Marie. She said, I do.
Okay, Anne-Marie, I'm coming back to you. Anybody else?
So far, only Anne-Marie.
So out of, well, if I remove myself on the moderator, that's 117 businesses in here who do not use a cash flow statement. Correct in saying that? I remove Anne-Marie, that's 116. Okay, Anne-Marie, I'm going to come to you and then I'll go back to the rest. Anne-Marie, tell me about your business.
So, well, it's agriculture, so I plant various crops. I do a variety of vegetables. Okay, so when I do my cash flow, I break down the vegetables. So at the end of the year, I can know how much I make in cabbage, how much I make in lettuce, how much I make in, certain things, and I track my expenses as my my inputs. I also put in if I get any subsidy. So for example, if I get 5 bags of fertilizer from government, I put it in as revenue. That's what I was taught, so I do it like that.
Wonderful, Anne-Marie. This is very good. Very good that example, and what you're doing there is excellent because you are able to see, as you mentioned, which of your products is profitable. So you know next year, this year I didn't make money in lettuce, so next year I'm going to invest in something else and stuff like that. I'm seeing a question in the group.
And I just to add, I even track my markets. So I can know how much I made from CPJ in lettuce, how much I made from Massey in lettuce, and stuff like that.
Wonderful. So Maureen Fontenelle, you're asking, the definition is here, but we'll go through it again. It's a financial document that shows how much money is coming into your business, how much money is going out, and when these movements of money occur. So basically, as I just heard from, who was it?
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie, yes, Anne-Marie. She's able, even with multiple crops, she's able to track exactly what happens with her expenses and her cash inflow. So for you, Maureen, can you speak?
Hello, hello.
Yes, Maureen, what do you do?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure you know me, Maureen Fontenelle from Ted Paul Nature Trail.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
presently
Hi,
in
Maureen, how are you?
London.
Wonderful.
I'm okay.
Yes, I know you definitely have a cash flow statement.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Well, wonderful. So basically what we're doing with this, especially since there are so many people in here who do not know, or probably you do it and you're not familiar, I would say this is possibly one of the most important documents you need to use on a monthly, daily basis to make decisions in your business. we have the habit of using our business's finances and we do not keep track of it. So we start off the month with whatever was sold or whatever we have in revenue from the month before. You add your sales, whatever other forms of income that came in. So I think was it Maureen? Wasn't Maureen? It was somebody before Maureen that mentioned about subsidies, grants. All of these you add as income that has come into the business. Then as you move on, somebody's writing on the screen. As you move on, you are able to add a section that shows all your cash outflows. So for example, in a typical small agriculture, I like to use watermelons, right? You sold 1,000 watermelons before, you have your money, let's just say it's $5,000. In the second section of your cash flow statement, you show all your expenditure. So your expenditure could be irrigation, it could be fertilizer, it could be the rent, it could be the labor that you used, it could be any other form, and then you subtract it from your income. You are able now to see at the end of the month, how is my money doing in my business? And as you could see from the example here, for the first month, moderator, can you check on this? Someone is writing on the screen.
Okay, will do.
It's kind of blocking the example right now. Okay, so continuing, in the first month, you could see that because the number 350 is in bracket, it means that for that period of time, you were actually short of $350. As you move to month 2, you could see the situation improved, and in month 3, there is profit. So this is able to show exactly what is taking place. Maybe in the first month, when you started your business, your investment is so high that you are not able to make money yet. It does not mean that your business is not profitable. So as you could see in this example, the investment is $1,000 and it does not continue in the following months, which means it was a single month investment. By the third month, you are able to cover that cost. These types of information is very important. So for example, you could have bought a water pump in month 1, and that was very, very expensive. And it shows, oh, at the end of the month, it shows that you didn't make a profit. It does not mean that you're not profitable. It just means that during that period, your investment cost was very, very high.
Okay, and we also have Anja. She said she uses QuickBooks.
Yes, well, the ones who use our accounting software, that is the level that you move up. A lot of our small farmers do not have access to it, but it's very, very useful in tracking our accounts. You can simply, at the end of the month, just generate a report that is able to give you all that information.
May I just add?
Sure.
Yes, another advantage to me for doing the cash flow, when I do my analysis at the end of the year, I can see which months that, so for example, cucumbers, I can see which months that I made the most money. So I know that's the time of year I should plant cucumbers.
Correct. Correct. Thank you so much for that example. And it's one of the things that a lot of small farmers don't do. They just don't, and they don't do it, not necessarily, they make seasonal production planting patterns based on experience, but not on financial decisions. So that's why you find a lot of times everybody's growing the same thing. And the last piece, moderator, are you able to get the writing of the screen?
Sorry, I can't. Let me see if I could get auto.
Let's see if I will hold a second. Okay, I was able to get it off.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. The last point, to add to what we did in the first class, I believe we were doing the costing and the pricing, but a lot of us need to find out at what point do we break even. And to do this, it looks simple. For some businesses, it's a lot more. As you have more than one product, it can be a lot more tedious. But simply put, we need to find out what this is, because this is where we cover all our costs. And then everything after this is a profit. So let's look at the example. A business sells a pack of plantain chips, $4.95. The total cost for that production is $260 per day. The unit variable cost, $265. So it costs you $265 per pack. The break even now, for us to get this, and I have the formula there, is you look at your total cost, you put that on top, you subtract your variable cost from your selling price. So the $495 minus the $265 divided by the $260. And we know that for us to be profitable, we need to produce 113 packs a day. Everybody gets this. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, I'm taking that everybody understands this part of our break-even. Very simple formula, but getting the information might be what's difficult. So we did in the first the Tuesday session, we were able to calculate all our costs. That's where you get your total cost up here.
Excuse me, Jason, we have somebody with their hands up. Venetia?
Go ahead.
Yes, I was saying, so there the emphasis is basically after you've gained that information from using the formula, then you focus on the volume you would require to make the profit that you would need to continue.
Correct. So what this does, it lets you know, this is what I must produce, whether it be daily, whether it be weekly, especially if you're using machinery. This is the amount I must produce to be profitable. If I'm producing less than this, I'm making a loss. Because you have a situation where you're not covering your cost. Okay, so we're going to move to another section, and this is a section I added in the presentation based on the discussion we had in our first class. Because a lot of us were trying to determine what price should I sell my product. And a large part of determining price, some of us said because Massey is buying, because this one is competitor. One of the biggest factors that we ignore when we do our pricing is understanding who is buying from us. Who is your target market? Who is your goal buyer? You want to be able to get as much information from those individuals, even when you sell to Massey. Massey is an intermediary, but ultimately it still has to go on the shelf. And there is a characteristic of somebody in the community, the demographic of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Nevis, St. Kitts. Who is the person that you're targeting? And a lot of us don't know. Sometimes we are targeting a health-conscious buyer with a fantastic, healthy product, but our packaging is in plastic. So your product might be health-conscious, but the buyer will ignore you because your packaging is in plastic, because they are not very akin to purchasing products in plastic. How do we get that information? How do we know who our buyer is? And I mentioned in the last class that we will do a little bit of market research. I think I have this in the end of this presentation today. But since we're speaking about it now, how do we know? And we're going to do a little example now. Let me call somebody from the group. I'm going to just pick somebody in random. Carol Richardson. Carol, are you here? No, Carol. Anybody wants to volunteer to tell me about their product?
Claudine, what about you?
Good night, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi. Okay. So I make sweet cucumber relishes.
Say that again.
I make sweet cucumber relishes.
Okay.
I do a sweet one and I do a spicy one. I do use glass jars. They're recyclable. What else would you like to know? Sorry.
Okay, so who is your target customer?
Right. So mainly I target everyone because it is a healthy product. It's a healthy product and it's also a product that children can use or grown-ups can use because it's natural cucumbers. I mean, local cucumbers with local peppers. Try to make everything as fresh as possible. And even though it's relish usually is used on things like hot dogs and burgers and that sort of thing, you can also use it. It's very versatile, so you can also use it for things like salads or tuna fish, or if you do baked or broiled fish or anything like that. So I target literally everyone, from children to older folks. So with that particular product anyway. I do have other products that I do at the baked goods, but you won't target everybody with the baked goods. But specifically for that product, it's completely vegan as well, you know. So it's a good product for basically everyone, all ages.
All right, thank you so much for that. Is it Claudine?
Yes, it's Claudine.
Claudine, there are so many things right and wrong with what you say.
Okay.
Because in as much as you could target everyone, the size of your business at this point cannot. Which means that you should have a goal buyer. You mentioned so many wonderful marketing points of your product. You talk about healthy. You talk about the wonderful packaging that you have. You talk about it being local. A lot of these resonate with who?
Health conscious persons.
Correct.
Yes.
Health conscious persons do not normally consume hot dogs or burgers.
No.
Correct. So
But
you have this situation here where you have a product that is healthy, but it's also used in fast food, which is not healthy. And you have a product that might be consumed by the younger generation that do the burgers, that do the hot dogs, but they would not buy it because they only use it for that particular part of consumption. So your real target customer might be the hot dog vendor, might be the burger store in a wholesale, or even the supermarket, which means that your focus in terms of pricing may be different from somebody who is consuming directly. I don't know if you're getting me. So there is a particular price for somebody that will buy your jar and buy it for their home for consumption. There is a different price for somebody who might be wanting to buy wholesale for a hotel because they're doing an all-inclusive and they sell burgers non-stop and they always need. So you have to now determine who is your goal buyer. And you could have many, as you mentioned, but the pricing strategy for each one of them will be different. The hotel might want to buy a few cases and they will want a wholesale price compared to somebody who wants to buy a jar to put in the fridge at home and they rarely use it. They use it once or twice a month and it might last longer for them. So again, understanding your goal buyer will cause different pricing strategies for you. But thank you so much for your example.
You're welcome.
Understanding your buyer now, also you have to try to see how you could find new customers. And you do that with marketing, but also with costing and pricing your product. So using Claudine again as an example, there are many large multinational companies that already do what she does. So we might be familiar with some household names of Swiss and I don't know what the rest are. And these are the ones that people jump in and buy immediately. As a small business, how do you compete with this? Yes, you use local cucumbers, yes, you use this, but how do you compete with this? You have to find the customers and add in information such as customer service, prioritizing satisfaction, engagement, And these are some of the things that we do. Return policies. So I brought this in because we spoke about it in the last class, that there are other factors that you cannot put your hands on that will determine the price of your product. I had an example recently where this customer was trying to export a particular product, but the buyer wanted the product to be in an empty package. And she is asking, how do I price this? Because my packaging is not on this, so I'm not spending money on printing, I'm not spending money on this. And all of these things come because you have to understand who the buyer is. So the example I just gave here was called contract packaging, where you are able to sell your product without any brand on it. How do you sell that product? You remove the cost that you would have been packaging to ensure that this is profitable for this person, because they will go and put their own package or their own brand on it as well. So you must understand how these factors come in pricing your products. And these are some of the information that is used to understand who your buyer is. So we mentioned before demographics. So in the case of Claudine, what is the information of your target buyer? What is the age range of your target buyer? So in this example, you could see there's a buyer here, Kate. This is her age, this is her gender. All of these factors, if you understand who is buying your product, by getting all that information, you would know how to price it properly. If you are targeting healthy conscious people of age 25 to 45, who are very gene savvy or whatever, there is a possibility that they will pay a high end because they're doing this for a specific reason. If you're targeting single moms who are looking for low value products to send the kids to school, your pricing strategy will be different. But you only are able to know that information by getting your buyer personas. So this is the information that is required. It would be interesting if Helen's daughters could possibly, after this class, have you submit some of that information, or you on your own create a little sheet and understand your buyer personas. Do a little exercise. I sell to jams and jellies to school children of age what to what, but school children do not work. So how do you know what their income is? Is that really your buyer, or is it the parents who buy for the children? All of that information is important. When we get that information, we are able to do costing and pricing more efficiently. And these also help in terms of determining the cost. So marketing and promotion, I'm pretty sure you are going to do a section on this going forward in your Agri-Academy class, but it's very, very important. I think the brand Helen's Daughters is already getting a lot of people to come out. When they hear you from Helen's Daughters, they associate you with certain quality and innovation and all of this. These you use as well. How do you stand out from your other competitors? How do you stand out? What about your packaging is different? And I remember once I did a session for poultry and pork farmers, and I asked a simple question. How many of the poultry or pork businesses have a Facebook page? And there was not one. I believe there was about 60 or 70 businesses in the classroom, and not one of them had a Facebook page. But when you look at, when we get down to December 13, 14, let me go just around that time before Christmas, you see all the kids putting little flyers on their page. All of a sudden, there's a WhatsApp circulating, talk, this all over, and people are able to generate so much sales from these free forms of advertising, and they don't even realize. So sometimes their father has pork, and they put a little WhatsApp post or a little Facebook post, pork on sale, this location, and they're able to generate sales for their father. How many of we inside there? I know Helen's Daughters, there's a lot of social media, a lot of PR. But on your own, how many of you have your own business page, Instagram page, even a website to drive traffic to your channel? Anybody with a website, a business page, or a Facebook page? I'm seeing some here.
I have Facebook and Instagram, but no website.
We have Maureen, who said she has Facebook. I think she also have a website.
Twitter.
Ranita has, she said, I do. Renes,
I have a website also, and I have it on Instagram, and also my son has it also.
Very good. There's more coming in.
yes. Maureen has Twitter, TripAdvisor, IG. Carol has Facebook. Cassandra, no website, have Facebook and Instagram. Alita, WhatsApp, redoing my Facebook and doing a catalog.
Wonderful. There was a period of time in 2020 when we had the unfortunate pandemic, COVID, and there was this movement away from brick and mortar and stores where people tried different ways to sell. And a lot of people who were not tech savvy, who never had these things before, they went into Facebook and Instagram and whatever. I know people who were able to have business Facebook pages that sold millions of dollars of CMOS on Facebook just by having a proper business page on Facebook, and then decided moving into little things. Again, if you're costing and pricing and tracking, you track the visitors that come to your page, and they were able to do boosted ads, sometimes $5 US, $10 US, able to get you your information exposed to over 1 million people. If you target this area, you pay for the boosted ad, and people see your stuff on the Facebook. This is a significant way to drive traffic to you, to people to see what you have. And a lot of us don't use it. Radio ads, TV ads are expensive, and more you find people are moving away from that. Even in this post the pandemic period, these mediums are still very, very important to drive business to your business and generate more revenue. And as I mentioned to you, this section, I will go into it in terms of when you're doing your pricing decisions, your costing decisions, and even beyond that, what to grow, how to grow, who to sell to. It's important to understand what is market research. So just now we did some buyer personas. That is part of market research. But we're going to go into a little bit more to understand, even doesn't matter what type of business is in this class tonight, whether you're talking about primary agriculture, right down to a service, agricultural tourism, whether you're talking about value-added pepper sauces, flowers. This is a fundamental part of the business that the entrepreneur always seems to forget. They don't do the research. And even when you don't do the research, or you cannot do the research, there are different mediums you can use to do that. So basically, we're talking about gathering, analyzing, interpreting information about your market, product, or service. And as I did with, was it Claudine a while ago, sometimes we believe that we're making a product that everybody wants. But understanding right down to the age range, to the gender, to the location, the preferred buying areas of our customers will ultimately make the difference between whether we make a profit or a loss. We need to do this by gaining market research. Why is it important? It helps you understand your customers' needs and preferences. It helps you to identify market trends and opportunities. So post the pandemic, you had a significant boost in the need for healthy foods. There was a significant boost in veganism, which is why you have so much increase in consumption of some of those vegetable products and non-meat products. This you find out using market research. It helps you to inform your pricing decision. So, for example, I like to use Ronita because she spoke so much the last time. Prior to 2020, we didn't know that, the external market didn't understand the real value of immune system boosting products like your cereals. But post 2020, the price that you sold it that time and now is different. If you continued without understanding what the market wanted, somebody could have been ripping you off completely and you would never know. Your pricing decisions is dependent on what the market is willing to pay. And the only way you are able to determine what that information is by doing market research. And it also helps you reduce business risk, because you could be investing in something that is completely out of sync in terms of demand. And that is very important. You have to do the research to be able to determine that. There's a comment there. Exactly. And that is a very good example. Let me see if I can pronounce the name properly. Alita. Sometimes that pepper sauce that you just mentioned might not be something that resonates in the people of St. Vincent, but it could be a hit somewhere in New York. It could be a hit somewhere in Toronto. So getting that level of research is important, because you might be investing your sales expenses, your marketing expenses, the wrong place. So I'm telling you all this, Lisha, you jumped the ball. This is how you go about doing market research. So there are different types of market research. The first one is called primary market research. This is where you collect raw data yourself. You are extracting the data directly from your customers. How do I do that? Surveys, interviews, focus groups, observations. One of the simplest things you can do, especially if you sell to a company like Marcy or a major supermarket. I'm not familiar with some of those in St. Kitts or Nevis, but any major supermarket, one of the easiest things you can do is stand and look at who is buying your product. Just stand. The security might want to chase you out. They might say you where you staying there for too long. But all you have to do is stand next to your stall and watch how people interact with your product. And if you can, without getting into trouble, ask them some questions. They pick it up, they put it back down, and they take something else. Excuse me, miss, why didn't you take this one? Is there something wrong with it? You record that information. Another thing you can do, I've seen some big companies, even some small companies do it, is have a little desk outside the supermarket with a little sample, and you get information from the customers. This is primary market research. You're collecting raw data, and you have to collect it and process it. So while you were standing there, this person came and they touch your product, you ask the questions, you record the responses that you get. You might do 10, and 10 people are saying, I didn't take it because it's too expensive. Or 10 people can be saying, I didn't take it because your packaging is not attractive. Or I couldn't understand the font that you use on the package. Or, you know, all this information, you record it. And then you could go back to your enterprise, to your business, and make the changes that are required to change that perception that you got from primary market research. This is very important, because There are big companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, that spend millions of dollars just getting that. That is one of the most fundamental part of doing business. Yes, samples are always free. So which is why you try to make it as small as possible. If you do a pepper sauce, you could just have a pepper sauce and a dip and have some chips and have them dip that in and ask them, what was your opinion? Is it acidic? Is it too strong? Is it flavorful? This is how we get that information. If your product is something that is high-end and very expensive, then sampling might not be the best option for you. You might just want to ask questions based on how it looks or other options without doing the sampling. So sampling is very, very determinant on the type of product we're talking about. You cannot just go and have people sample a watermelon. Is there a question?
Hello, good night, Lisha.
Go ahead.
There is a particular product that I do. They actually vegetarian vegan balls, and I have them well in containers, and I have them probably 5 or 6 in a bowl, and then and it has a sauce with it. So when persons see it and it's like, and when you tell them what it is, it's like the reaction that you get at first is, I don't know what this tastes like, and it has a whole lot in it. So how do you know that I'm really going to like it? So what I did, I had extras. Well, I had those that were in the bowl, and I had those that were probably loose in a container. And I said, if you want, you could buy the individual one to know if you want a whole bowl. So I probably asked for probably $1, with the sauce of the product, and then they're like, okay, miss, I want the whole bowl now.
Wonderful.
So that's why I was asking you, would that count? That's why I was asking you, should I have given the sample free? Because for me, I feel like it takes a lot of time to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of that can I really give
No,
out?
but what you did is exactly what should be done. And you did excellently. So what you have to do now is collect the information, because it's all good and well. What you said, you provided a sample and people bought the whole pack afterwards. But what did they say about it? What did they give you any feedback on texture, taste?
Yes,
cost?
I got all.
Right.
I got information from
that information. How many people like the taste? Did anybody say that it's too this? Is anybody saying that this is too expensive? Is anybody saying that I love the taste, but it should have more? Collect that information.
Okay.
And put it in front of you, everything together. Some of us use, you could use a question.
I think it was just one person, because if I put 5 in the bowl, I got one person say, miss, but look, they look like they have a space there for another one. I say, well, if you like your bowl full, I'm going to fill your bowl. But there are customers who will fine with just the 5.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing some wonderful comments from the group. The young lady who just spoke there, what's your name?
Pardon?
What's your name?
Lisha.
All right, Nisha, what you're saying there is excellent in terms of doing market research. So what you've done basically is conducted a primary market research exercise. What you could do in future is go to that particular supermarket, wherever you did that sampling, with preset questions. So if you have a tablet, you could go on Google. Google has something called Google Survey or Google Forms, and do your questions in advance. So for example, do you like the taste? Do you think that the price is fair? And you could put the answers, yes, no, whatever. So while people are speaking to you, you click it. At the end of that exercise, it is able to give you data. You could go and press end at the end of that sheet, and it's able to give you the answers. How many answers said yes? How many answers says no? For every question that you had there. And you are able to see in front of you, this is what people think about my product. And then you are able to make decisions even when it comes to pricing. Everybody thinks that this is a wonderful product, and I can buy more. Maybe I should price it a little bit more. Some people are saying that I love it, but it's too expensive. Then I need to look at how I can bring down my price. This is the fundamental part of market research that you can use. And as Ronita says in the group, they use pop-up.
So when you go to the Google survey, will it tell you that it's there's one for food, there's one for
No, you generate the questions. It doesn't matter what it's all about. It could be about clothes, it could be anything. You generate your questions. Possibly that's something that can be done in a future class with the Agri-Academy to teach you about some of those tools. But it's a wonderful tool to use when you do. And even if you don't use Google Forms or surveys, write it in a notebook. And you do it on Microsoft Word. You write your 10 questions, you print 50 forms. And as the people are there, you give them the form, or if they don't want to fill it, you fill it for them. That'd be wonderful.
Well, thank you, sir. Like, because it
Yes.
always feels like it feels difficult. It feels difficult. I don't know if it's mental, but it feels difficult because how do I price something in a container? So I need to price the container. I need to price the sauce. I need to price the product. I need to price the toothpick. So I'm like, if the person doesn't even take all these things, should I leave the product at that price? So it's a lot of
This is part of what you learned in this class, because everything that you mentioned there didn't appear in your business without a cost. Everything that you're doing, the final product should be able to cover all your costs. You're not doing anything for free. So whether it be a toothpick, the plastic container, all the materials that you use in the sauce, if you have your little records and you are able to note each one of them, you will be able to see that you're covering your cost. And for what you mentioned, there's some of these small items, the more you sell, the less the cost becomes because you buy it in bulk. Somebody's hand is up.
I had something else, but I'll ask it. Let somebody go, and I'll ask another question.
I'm listening to the conversation. And I'm thinking, here person's coming into the supermarket and you're asking them questions and so on based on the research you're doing. But how do I know what is a representative sample? How do I know, say 10 persons enough, 30 enough, that kind of thing?
Wonderful question. So in statistics, there is actually a formula to determine what is a representative sample. It varies. So for example, if you are going to go very general, you can use the demographic data of your population size. So for example, if you have most large companies, they use population. So the population of St. Lucia is 180,000. The representative sample is 10% of that. If you are doing Marcy stores, Marcy, and you have a very good relationship with Marcy, Marcy could tell you on average, the store has 10,000 walk-ins for the day. So a representative sample for you might be 10% of that. So it depends on what you're starting from. Even from, if you don't have that information from your perspective, you are able to produce 10 bottles of pepper sauce a month. So a representative sample for you would be 10 customers. You use parameters based on statistics. There are some formulas that are used, like I mentioned, 10% of a population size is generally what is considered to be a representative sample size, but it would vary based on the product. So it would be good to have some level of conversation with your purchasing manager at Marcy. Make sure to have those type of relationships because they can help you to determine what the data is that you use it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. So we just did primary market research, which is actually the most difficult to find. As I mentioned, there are companies that pay millions of dollars just for people to go around and do surveys. So you'd see them all the time, walking around doing surveys. Some companies get paid a lot of money to do this. If you can do it by yourself, wonderful. I just gave you some ways you can save yourself some money and do it by yourself. But there is other forms of research. So secondary research is using existing data. Sometimes that comes from a cost. So as I mentioned to the lady who just spoke, you want to have an idea, you're selling, let me use a new example. You're selling granola. You're making a wonderful granola using coconut, sweet potatoes, breadfruit. You're selling granola. You could go to your Marcy officer or the purchasing officer or the purchasing department accounts at Marcy or the major supermarket in your country, and you ask them, how much granola is sold for the month? Not just yours. How much granola is sold for the month? If you have that kind of relationship, you are able to see. If not, you could go ahead and say, I am the only person in this country making granola. The rest of the granola is imported. I can go to the government office, Central Statistics, and ask them to give me the import data for granola. So I am able to see for the year, for the month, $20,000 worth of granola is imported, but I'm only selling $100 a month, which means my market share is 100 over 20,000. I am very, very small player. You are able to see that information using data. So almost any product, if you are able to get those kind of, you want to find out how much watermelon is produced for a year in St. Lucia, speak to your agricultural extension officer. They're able to look at the agricultural stats and say, St. Lucia produces 100,000 kilograms of watermelon a year. You are only producing 1,000. What is your contribution? 1,000 over 100,000. You are able to see from a glance where you fall in the pecking order. Am I a major player? Am I able to determine price? Let's just say, for example, that you were in fact producing 80,000 kilograms of watermelon. So therefore, 80% of the watermelon produced in the island of Nevis is done by you. I can now say, but wait, I can raise my price and nobody can tell me anything. This is the type of information that you need to make decisions. If you are way down there in terms of the power you have over the market, it's very, very rare that you can alter price. Your competitors will just eat you out. But if you are way up there, you can change the price. And some information you can even find online. For example, you want to find out what is the current rate of veganism that is growing globally. You go online and look at the global rate. Veganism has grown by 45% over the past 5 years, which means that there is a growing demand for healthy vegan products. You can make your decisions based on that. This is secondary market research. And some of it you could find for free. Some of it, you get it from your extension officers, government reports, industries. This information, you use them and you could make a lot of informed decisions. So we spoke about some of this already, but let's go into it in a little depth. Let's conduct some market research.
Can you repeat which ministry you can go to again?
It depends on what product. So for example, if you're producing, if you're in agriculture, go to the Ministry of Agriculture. They are supposed to, I have to be very careful when I say that. They're supposed to collect agricultural information on a monthly basis. So at any given point in time, the Ministry of Agriculture, your extension officer, is supposed to tell you that for the month of July, this is the amount of watermelons that was produced. They have their little formulas, they have their little forecasting ratios that they use, and they're able to give you a fairly accurate assessment of what is produced. And in some cases, they can even give you forecasts for the rest of the year. They tell you based on past experiences over the past 5 years, on average, X amount of pineapples are grown every year. You can now make the decision. You went to your extension officer. It shows you for the past 5 years, the island of St. Kitts has produced 1,000 pounds of potatoes a month. However, Marcy will tell you that they sell 5,000 pounds, which means that they are importing 4,000 pounds. You can make a decision and say, but wait, there is a gap between what is produced locally and what is imported. You get that information through market research. A lot of times we see it, we say it in our head, oh, we're importing this, I should grow this. But how much is it? What is the price that they're importing it? We need to get the information before we go into that level of production. Yes, they do give you what is reported to them, but they also collect information from what is sold in the market, what is sold at the hotels, and they compare the two. All that information you can use to make decisions. I've seen very comprehensive reports on all what the hotels are buying. So if you are producing specifically and you're targeting hotels, you can look at everything the hotels are importing. There are free websites, for example, with the International Trade Center, where you just have to log in because we are in a developing country, it's free. You could log in and you can see, for example, go online and find out how much pork was imported into St. Lucia, into Nevis, into St. Kitts for the year. And then you could say, you know what, there is a lot more pork being imported than pork being produced. Let me go into there. And you are able to see that information. These informations are very important because they help you to make decisions in production, help you make decisions in pricing. Even simple decisions, for example, even if you are a very small company, and I notice, well, most of us in here are, you are a small producer of pepper sauce, sometimes go into Marcy and you look at pepper sauce that they import, pepper sauce that is sold. You might be a small player compared to this, but you have to look at whether they can give you data as to the other things that happen. Whether a buy local campaign can work. Yes, it was International Trade Center. I think I will get you the link and post it in the group afterwards. You are able to get other information, even as a small company that can help you make decisions. So even if Grace pepper sauce, Swiss, is being imported, what is the real impact of putting product of Nevis on my bottle? Can the Marcy executives have a shelf that has only local products? What is the impact of that shelf? You have to make those decisions using data. By putting this information on my product, can I differentiate properly or significantly from the well-known multinational company? These are the things that we need to determine when we are making our decisions when it comes to production, but more importantly for this section, when it comes to pricing. So we're going to be doing basic market research. So for example, to determine the demand and price range for organic tomatoes in the market, right? Who are you selling this to? Who is your target market? We did it earlier, buyer personas. Who are your potential customers? What are their characteristics? Who are buying organic tomatoes? What is their income? What are their preferences, right? So, as I mentioned, surveys at the supermarket. You could stand there, observe. If you stand there for an hour and it's only women picking up the tomatoes, you are collecting that information. If at random you could say, excuse me, miss, I'm just doing a little survey on my tomatoes. Would you mind telling me if you fall between the age of 30 and 40? Don't ask them for the age. You know, women don't like people to know the age. Just simple information like that. You can use that information now to make decisions going forward. You observe the competitors. Look at the price of imported tomatoes versus yours. Just by comparing in the supermarket, outside, at the hotels, right? This is how simple market research is done. And after you've conducted all of this, you analyze the data, you record the information, you look at patterns and trends. So as I mentioned, you stood there for an hour, 20 people came to buy the tomatoes, but 25 of them were women. Out of the 25 women, 20 of them fell between the ages of 30 and 35. Out of that 20 women, 19 of them have kids. These are the types of patterns and trends we need to pick up, and then we can go back to our businesses and make decisions to attract more people with that basic demographics. Everybody is still with me? Are you understanding this? Do you need any further clarification?
I do understand because from what you're speaking about, I went to Peppercorn, so they had ordered some seasoning from me. They took the 3 cases to them, and by the time they put 2 cases on the shelf, they were finished, and they placed the third one, and just before I left, half case was gone. And while there, the lady said to me, "Miss, I'm sorry, but you have to bring me 4 more cases."
Can you speak a little louder? I could barely hear you.
Oh, sorry. In relation to what you're talking about, Peppercorn is one of my biggest buyers. And I remember about a couple of weeks ago, they had ordered 3 cases of lard seasoning from me. And before the seasoning could actually go on the shelf, they were sold. Because by the time they start taking them out of the box, people start saying, "Can I have 2 bottles? Can I have 2 bottles?" I'm like to myself, but the seasoning is not even on the shelf yet. But while the 2.5 cases went out of the box. This is not on the counter. This is out of the box.
Right.
And the other half was left to put on the box and the shelf.
Right.
And she said, "We miss. I'm sorry, but we need 4 more cases." She said, "I hope you have everything in your head. So when you go home, you're gonna write it down in your book." I said, "No, I have a book. I do all my documents in the book one time."
Wonderful. Wonderful. So you see, this part, it does not sound like we're doing accounting or pricing or costing, but this market research now, the information that you are able to draw, the conclusions you are able to make will inform how you price your product. Because the lady who just spoke, people were buying stuff from the box because the demand is so high. I'm not telling you to raise your price, but I'm pretty sure if you did at that particular point in time, they would still pay for it because the demand was so high. So this, sometimes you go back now, after those 2 cases were finished, and you put $1 on it and you put it back on the shelf, it would still sell because you are now observing that the demand for your product is high and people are willing to pay more because the demand is high. And the only way you can see that is by conducting the research.
So correct.
So in terms of applying market research to pricing, we just spoke about it. You have to understand what are your customers willing to pay. If you don't understand what your customers are willing to pay, you can be one, underpricing your product, which is the example we just did there, or you could be overpricing your product, right? You have to identify the gaps in the market, demand for premium. So for example, you could have been a producer of tomatoes, but a simple change in your production pattern from using chemical fertilizers to using organic fertilizers is able to fetch you a higher price because you've understood that the customers in your market no longer want to consume chemical agriculture. You do this with market research. You can determine how to differentiate your product. So all your competitors are using a plastic bag for CMOS, you decide to use something paper. And that can cause a significant differentiation and cause your product to be more desired by your target market. And you are able to set competitive prices. So this is very important when it comes to costing and pricing your product because you are able to see information that you don't normally have when you come up and you do, okay, this is my cost, this is my labor, this is my rent. This other information that is down to buyer personas are able to let you know, okay, my markup should really be 40% because my customers fall within the affluent group, they're health conscious, and they're willing to pay more because they're health conscious. And that is the importance of market research when it comes to pricing. So let's do a little exercise. Among ourselves, choose the product you consider. So for those of you who have many, choose a product, one of your products. For those of you who have one, you choose that product. You list 5 questions that are important to you in terms of making decisions, right? And even among this class, the Helen's Daughters grouping, send it to your colleagues, send it to the group, and have them to answer it. And you'll be able to see how important that is in making decisions. So this is what we can start with. Choose one of your products, whether it be your relish, whether it be the pepper sauce, whether it be your sea moss, whether it be, for those of you, I saw some people mention that they're not yet started. You want to start, you're trying to decide, what should I grow? That's the right way to do it. Should I grow okra? Okay, I'm going to list okra. What information do I need? How many people buy okra? What price are you willing to pay? Where are you willing to buy it? The supermarket, the market, from delivery. You write down the questions. You're basically creating a survey. And then at the end of that, the questions you ask and how relevant it is to you, you are able to determine, I can make some serious money by growing okra. People are willing to pay X. If I grow it on this, I am able to produce at this cost. Therefore, my profit is Y. This is one of the ways that we can use to determine the price and determine what to grow and how to grow it. Any questions on this mini market research? It would be useful if we could have done it now. I don't think we have the time. So you can do it among yourselves. You can even do it with your family members, and you can expand it. For those of you who already have businesses who sell in the supermarkets, expand it and do a survey in the supermarket. Like I said, you have to be careful. Sometimes the security might not be very forthcoming in letting you do research in the supermarket, but sometimes you take the chance, ask questions, and get the information. And number four, analyze it, discuss it, and see how it influences your price. Any questions on this mini research paper? Anybody has done this before? Go ahead. Somebody's hand is raised.
Well, for me, okay, somebody's speaking, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, good night. For me, I do seasoning, not on a large scale, but what I take into consideration, I have a city garden, I have the yard. So I started with the scythe, and then all the things that I would put in my seasoning, I start growing them for myself. I believe in having organic stuff, so I do that. The only thing I have to actually consider buying is like the onion, the garlic, and the vinegar. But everything else you can think of that I would put in my seasoning, I grate myself. So in case like that, based on what we did on Tuesday as well, you look at indirect and all the stuff that we did on Tuesday, you get to use your own. So you actually get from the garden, because there's things that might not need much caring and so forth, if I can put it like that. But then the things that you need, so you would gain more from your own garden and actually just be using money to buy less stuff that you need to put in the garden. So this is one thing I actually take into consideration, but didn't realize it was a good thing, because look at coming out here now as a very important, way to whether save and even strategize to know how to go about doing your own little business. That's just an input I wanted to share.
But I will take you on. I love these comments, because what you've done there is twofold. In terms of marketing, understanding your buyer persona and how you should put out your product, you have now told me of a wonderful story where you are able to control the inputs into your seasoning. You are able to control what comes in because you grow it yourself. In terms of pricing, I would disagree with you, because you are spending time to grow your own. You are taking that input into your business without allocating a cost to it. So, for example, if you're growing thyme, you're growing shadow benny, you're growing onions, whatever, these that you're taking from the garden should also have a cost in your input. Even if it's a low cost because you're growing it, put a cost to it because it's input going into your business. So for example, one of the simplest things you can do is what is the market rate for thyme? What is the market rate for onions? You can just allocate it. So when you go in your garden, you harvested 2 pounds of onions to make your seasoning. The going market price for onion is $5. You put input in your pricing as $5, even if it came from you. So you are able to cover yourself because you did spend time to grow that onion. You didn't spend time to water it, you spent time to do it. There must be a cost allocated to it, even if it comes from your backyard.
Thank you. I'll take that into consideration.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor to questions now. We're coming to the end of the session. I was actually going to go into a business plan, but I do not think we have time for that. Maybe we can do that in another session. But for now, let's stop at market research, and I will take any other questions that you have.
Ladies, do you guys have any questions?
Hi, good night. My question is just something I think I missed what Jerson said. You said other than value added in terms of having agri-processed product, if you want to say plant, say lettuce, right? And so I'm going to you did say some things, but I didn't get, but in my mind, I was sort of thinking about what I would ask a person, or if I were to conduct a survey as to find out, who, to determine who or where my market would be the best place, and also the people that I may want to target, right? So you said that you did say some, and while you were speaking, well, which is why I missed what you said, I had a point. One of the things that came out was, this whole, and you mentioned it, I think, earlier, where you spoke about millennials being so much more, having this sense of, the whole justice issue, the climate justice, social justice, and all that. So they are very much invested in having products that are more organic, less damaging to the environment.
Correct.
And the other one I wanted, well, who would I target, right? And then, I mean, I sort of answered the question in that, yes, it would be organic. Yes, it will be millennials, but also can piggyback on the whole thing. I was looking at something earlier today where they have the annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF, and there was a meeting with the health ministers of your minister was actually one of the panelists, where they were looking at the issue of NCDs in the region and how it is affecting us apart. Yes, from a health perspective, but there's also the development aspect of it. So they're targeting people in the age group where you are seeing NCDs. And we, of course, are seeing a case where the NCDs are coming on much earlier than in the generation before. So, but you said some other things. So that was what was going around in my head. So I sort of wanted to hear what were some of the other things you were saying.
No, but to add to what you just added, it's important that a lot of the small developing states of where we are from, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Vincent, a lot of the information that we're speaking about now is not used when we do our product development or even decide what to grow and how to price, whatever. What might be important for you here is simply to look at something like a census, right? If millennials are really the main pushers in our regions, how many of them exist in our society? You look at the census and you'd see that in most of our OECS states, we have an aging population, which means that millennials might not be the major buyers in our states. It might still be the baby boomers because we have an aging population. So it's important sometimes to go way back to the start. What is the population census? The population says that the majority of people in Nevis is between the age of 45 to 65. These are the people then that would be the ones that are spending. So it's important. I understand what you're saying. It's wonderful, but we need to get down to the market research has to give us numbers. We have a situation where there is, like you mentioned, a lot of diabetes, a lot of hypertension, a lot of this in our societies. Of what age? And all this information is important when we generate what to produce, how to. So you selling a product that is very good for hypertension, and then we don't say that on the product, but we have a society where everybody's looking for something to bring down the pressure. That is information, market research. That's what we use now to generate that information. I think there are some hands raised, moderator.
Yes, Venetia, go ahead. Venetia, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
ahead.
I wanted to say, I'm not sure if I'm the only one. I heard Alicia say it a while ago, but why does it mentally feel so cumbersome, the idea of, you know, market research and really keeping track of expenses and so on in a business? I don't know where the disconnect is, but it mentally it feels like pulling out teeth for some reason.
You see, to answer you simply, for some people it's not, but for most entrepreneurs it is. And as I mentioned in the first class, as entrepreneurs, as farmers, as people who quickly want to take our wonderful product to the market, we simply sometimes do not have time to do those things. Some of these things can be very tasking in terms of administrative data entry work, right? But what I was trying to stress to you is, as an entrepreneur, you might be scientifically driven, you might be innovation driven, you might be somebody who loves to get their feet wet and their hands dirty in the mud. None of these things would really matter if you're making a loss. So sometimes we have to use our hobby, use our passion, and make the sacrifice and operate it as a business. And that is when we will know exactly if what we're doing is making sense. So it sounds cumbersome at times, which is why for this session, we try to make it simple, very basic record keeping, a notebook, an Excel sheet, simple, basic, but sometimes it's the discipline to keep adding the information in, whether it be daily, whether it be weekly. That is what we lack. And it's something that we have to learn because we are not operating a passion. We're not doing a hobby. This is a business and you have to operate it like this.
Okay, we have LaShawn. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes. Somebody. Well, I have a friend who has his business, and he, probably just giving a little guidance as to how he would run his business. And he was saying to me, in terms of delivery. So I'm thinking, if I leave my house, I have a product and I'm leaving my house and I'm taking it to somebody. And I feel like, okay, I'm going in town anyway, I could just drop off this product. Do I need to charge for delivery? And
Yes.
if it's a case, because I felt, okay, let me tell you how I feel, honestly. I felt bad because, or sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I'm going in that location. And sometimes the whatever I'm selling, probably it's $5. It's $5, but I live down south, but I'm going to Castries anyway, so I'm going to just deliver this to this person. So that's another probably $5 for delivery. So I felt like this is $5, and the person is paying. The person will probably say, hey, "This is $10. This is actually $10 rather than this being $5."
No, but before you finish, I'm not necessarily saying that you should charge for delivery. However, you're driving, right?
Yes, sir.
Who is putting the fuel in that vehicle? Is that your personal income or is that your business income?
Well, it's my personal.
So we have a problem because you are doing business work with personal income, and that is where people get in trouble. People get in trouble. You have to differentiate. If you are going to castries for the business, that is different. If you're going to castries on your personal and you decide to drop something for the business, then that's okay. That can go. But as long as you are conducting business activities and the funding, whether it be fuel, whether it be bus, whether you pay somebody to drop it, is being paid for by the business, you must record it.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Ronita, have a question. How do you feel about making people want your product than trying to create something they want?
I'm not sure I fully understand that question yet.
Ronita, are you there? Ronita?
How do you, let me see, if I could read it out.
I think from what I can understand, I think what she's saying is that she's comparing you finding out first what the customer wants and then trying to satisfy that need versus you thinking, oh, I'm good at doing whatever, so let me just push it down the customer's throat. Yes.
I understand. Both are relevant. Both are relevant. Determining what customers need is almost at the product innovation stage. So for example, I saw some people inside there who said that they're not yet producing anything, they're not yet whatever. So that would be actually good for them. They're determining through market research what the market wants, right? If you already have a product, you have to now market that product for people to want it. So it depends on which stage of the market you are. Even if you are already producing, for example, in Ronita's case, she's producing dried CMOS. However, the market shows that the most revenue from CMOS products actually comes from CMOS gels. Ronita can now move up the value chain because she's understood that to get more revenue, she needs to move up the value chain and produce CMOS gel. So it applies again. All that question does is telling you, everybody inside there, telling me that market research is what is going to tell me what to do in terms of what to produce.
So Ronita, hey, sorry, I missed the question. I had to hand my aunt something outside.
That's okay. We answered your question.
Yes, please, I heard you. The thing is, right, when we started doing CMOS, a lot of people didn't know how to use it, what to use it for, and that sort of thing. So what I did, I created, a lot of products from it and show people how to use it, because oftentimes we create these products, we have these products, but we don't market it properly. So I do cheesecakes, I do cremes, I do lemonades, we do capsules, soaps, anything you could think about CMOS, rum punch. There's a wide variety of stuff. And instead of researching and seeing what people want, we created stuff like the cheesecake. Nobody ever had CMOS cheesecake. We created stuff and, we added the benefits to them, and then people gravitated to it.
Correct. Wonderful. So both of them works. Any more questions?
Ladies, do we have any more questions?
No, it's not a question, but I just want to make a comment on record keeping for the farmer who spoke about record keeping and saying it's so time consuming or cumbersome and stuff like that. Like it's frightening her. Can I go on?
Go on.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Anne-Marie again. I cannot not do record keeping because I was trained that way. So for example, I do my financials, I do my cash flow, and I do production records as well. And it assists me in many ways. So for example, if I'm going to sow cabbage, so I have the date that I sow the seeds, when I expect to transplant, when I expect to harvest, because I do research on the variety, the number of seeds and everything. So in future, when I have decisions to make, so for example, if I'm going to plant my cabbage at 2 feet apart, and the next time I'm rotating, so I'm going to do cucumbers. I know cucumbers are 4 feet apart on the same area that I had the cabbage. So immediately I can calculate how many seeds I must sow. Okay, I will know, okay, so if I do a certain variety of cabbage, and the next time I do another, then I can compare results and say, okay, you see that one is not good. I prefer that one based on days to harvest or well, maturity, and even the weight and stuff like that. I keep records on pest and disease control. So when I transplant every week, if I'm doing any spraying, so the chemical that I use, the quantity that I use, because I envisage down the road we may traceability, we may have to answer certain questions, but I just cannot not do records because it assists me in so many ways.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah.
much for that, Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
So any more questions, ladies? Okay. Mr. Bada, we want to say thank you very much for another evening well spent. And I know for a fact my ladies have learned a lot, and everything they learned, they're going to put into practice. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to do this session. Again, thank you for having me, and a pleasant good night to everybody.
Good night, ladies.
And have a blessed
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Good morning,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
That's our last
One
question,
pet
Mr.
Creole,
Yama.
them, eh?
You have another class?
Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.